Hey guys, how are you? It's Rick. I'm here with Pastor Josh and our special guest, Mark Pritchett, who's joining us today. It's been a couple years since we've done the Let's Talk Live podcast, and we're excited to be back. A lot of different circumstances and conditions, so we are doing our best to keep our distance from one another. So hopefully this works out. There's going to be some technical difficulties. Please bear with us as we get through this. So, Josh, where's Josh?
What's going on?
How are you, Josh?
I'm doing good. Oh, look, there I am. I got a big old head.
We are doing our best to social distance through these crazy times. Josh, what's it been like for you running a church and getting all these kind of things ready for the people who really they can't be here? It has to have been kind of weird, don't you think?
It is been kind of weird. I think I've transitioned more from maybe like pastoral duties to more kind of TV production. I mean, low budget, I'll be you, but low, production type stuff, which is fun. I like doing it. It's a lot of fun. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, but I could piece it together pretty well and just kind of support Pastor Phil in whatever way we can. So
I think it's incredible. I mean, you definitely set the set up where we're literally social distancing. This is CDC guidelines approved. And
no one's shutting us down, man.
They're not shutting us down. Josh, what's it like with the congregation being away? Are they having some? Are you seeing new problems? Are you guys able to communicate with them?
Yeah, we're checking in on people. We have a call list we're rotating through. Taryn has been doing a great job of keeping in contact with people. Pastor Phil has been doing that, and everybody has their people that they check in on. I know there's some people are struggling more than others. Some people absolutely love it. They're like, I never have to leave my house. This is the greatest thing in the entire world. So there's definitely the people who enjoy it more and the people who are struggling more, for sure.
So you're seeing a lot of people maybe struggling, kind of asking those questions and not really knowing what to do. Are you seeing a lot of that?
Yeah, I think mostly people are struggling with the loneliness. There's especially some of the older folks who are living home by themselves and can't really get out. I think that's some of the ones who are having a hard time, and we just want to be there for them, love on them, let them know that we're here. That obviously God's here, and see if there's any practical needs that we can meet, as well as the spiritual needs as well. So it's weird, nobody that's living today has ever really lived through this. So we're not necessarily making it up as we go along, but we're trying to do the best we can with what we got.
A lot of improvising.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're all kind of improvising. I'm improvising how to be at home and with my kids all day, and them driving me crazy. And I think everyone's doing that too. One of the things we talked about before we came back and we rebuilt this set, kind of. Some of what you mentioned bringing Mark back, our friend Mark, and I just want to put this up front first. Most of you guys know Mark, but for those of you who don't, Mark is like, right, Josh? He cheers us all up all the time. He's always got fun stories. I myself can get kind of moody and crabby sometimes, and Mark's that one guy that keeps me smiling. In fact, it was a couple of weeks ago. I was texting him. And let's bring him on. But I was texting him, Josh. And
Oh, hey, guys.
There's Mark. There's
How's
Mark.
it going?
Mark, I was just.
Can you hear me? Josh built this great studio in my apartment. Looks great, huh?
Mark's new place in
Social
Connecticut.
Distancing.
Social distancing.
Mark, I was just telling Josh about the time a couple of weeks ago where I was in a real cranky mood.
What else is new?
I was
right,
just
Gina?
going through my thing.
I hope Gina's listening.
I was going through one of my little, doubting Thomas moments, and you know what Mark told me to do? He told me to watch Pollyanna.
Huh.
And it was really funny because it was like...
Great movie.
Well, I mean, look, and he tells me, trust God, God's in control, and, that's really cool, Mark. I mean, that helps so much. But you told me to watch Pollyanna because I hadn't watched it since I was little. I don't even remember.
Honestly, the first time I ever watched it was right before I sent it to you, like literally a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
and it was just about a girl who's just like changes everyone's life because she's so sweet, and she just spreads it. She spreads it around, and it was kind of like, it was just interesting that you made us watch that. I made Emma watch it, and Gina, and we just like got into it. I was like, why is Mark making us watch this? But it's so true, because during this time, especially for me, and I don't know if a lot of you people are going through this stuff, but like, we go through ups and downs. At least I have. Like, some days we get a little fearful. Sometimes we get,
Sure.
sometimes we'll feel like, okay, it's going to be over soon, and then you kind of get this idea, it's not going to be over, and you start to feel trapped in your house, and you can't go to church, and so the days change.
Can't go to Disneyland.
You can't go to Disneyland. I mean, we've had a lot of things canceled, and I haven't had a chance to see you guys, and people haven't had a chance to see each other. So Mark, and not just the Pollyanna, what are some of the things, Mark, that could help people like me and people who are just, because we're not really designed to be like alone and isolated. Like, we're humans, and humans are like the biggest punishment. What is the biggest punishment you could give people in the world when they commit a crime? That's to put them in isolation.
Solitary, yeah.
It's a punishment, really.
Right.
And here we are trying to make not good of it, but we're trying to actually
Make the best.
get
Sure,
through of it,
of
right?
course. Yeah.
Right. And you in the Bible, for example, what was it? Paul was in prison all the time. I mean, I never really thought about what it was like to be in prison, because I never wanted to go, and I'm not in prison, but in a way, I'm kind of locked in my house because I can't go anywhere or do anything.
Right.
So, what kind of things could you say about that?
Well, to me, the biggest thing is you got to count your blessings. Number one. Right off the bat, if we live in America, and a buddy of mine, he and I say this all the time, we won the lottery. Right off the bat, the moment you're born where we live, in the United States, we're already ahead of the game. I mean, we're so blessed. So you got to count your blessings, number one. Realize that a lot of people have it way worse than anything that you or I will ever experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is I think, just think about other people. See how you can be a blessing to other people instead, because that's the quickest way to get out of a pity party for yourself, is to say, what can I do for others? How can I cheer someone else up? And as soon as you start thinking about other people, then you don't have time to think about yourself. So that's kind of my thing. I think maybe it is a bit Pollyanna-ish, but I think it's also biblical.
Josh.
Oh, you don't like my answer? You're going
No,
to Josh now?
No. But I want to know, to Mark's point, he really does find, he's always been like that. Like, Mark's always been that. He's always put us in a really good frame of mind. I mean, you've known him way longer. He was your youth pastor.
Children's pastor. Let's
I'm
not get him off that.
old.
Let's not get him that easy. But yeah, I mean, but I think, like he said, it's very biblical. I mean, one of the fruits of the Spirit is joy. And if Christians can't experience or express, I think emphasis on the expressing part of joy, then why would the world want Christ? I mean, if we're just gonna feel and live in the same emotions as the world, then I mean, there's no hope there.
Right.
But we can experience joy and we can experience hope because of who Christ is. And that really is, I think, kind of the bottom line for us. Is it's not, sure, we may be stuck in our homes for a while, and there's a whole lot of arguments either way, but the bottom line is, through it all, God is still on the throne.
And as soon as you start thinking about, if you base your reaction to things on how you feel and on your circumstances, that's just a slippery slope.
Yeah.
How do you? But I mean, and that's a great point. I mean, isn't that the $1 million trick right there? Is to, I guess, figure out a way to get out of your emotions because it's hard. Like,
yeah,
a lot of people are saying. I was reading some things today. It's crazy. I mean, I feel like people are gonna snap. Like 30 days was cool. 60 days is not as cool. I don't want to imagine what 90 is gonna be. In some cases, it's gonna be like that. But people are not. going to
But
start
again,
doing well.
you know, getting back to the point that we are living in this land of plenty, where where some of our biggest concern is if my Wi-Fi's. We're just talking about our Wi-Fi is not fast enough. They're slowing it down, and then that upsets us. But think about people that are right now don't have food to eat. You know, we got to count our blessings, and when you do, you know, you take your eyes off of yourself and your problems, and you know, suddenly it's not that bad.
It's true. It's true, and it's a matter of perspective. I think a lot. You know, it's so easy to focus on the negative that's right in front of your face.
Right.
But if we take some of that energy that we're focusing on all this negative stuff, and we look past what we can see with our physical eyes and see what God is doing for us spiritually, it opens up a world of blessings and joy, because no matter our circumstances, God is still at work. And I think, you know, a lot of people say, well, that's a lot of Christianese you're throwing out there. If you look past the now and what does that even mean? Well, you know, I encourage you, dig into the Bible, because the more you read the Bible, the more it's plain to see that our present circumstances shouldn't dictate how we feel. I mean, you think of like Joseph, he was thrown in a ditch and sold into slavery by his brothers, and God was working things out. You know, while it, you know, was his plan to be thrown in the ditch or wasn't his plan to be thrown in the ditch, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I know that God worked everything out, and he was able to provide for the nation. So while we can't see past what's happening right now, we got to know that God is still at work.
Yeah, can I interject something here,
No.
Rick? I know you're normally in charge of this thing, but why don't we just, as an exercise right now, each one tell something positive that has come out of this quarantine time with the coronavirus? So what's one thing that you have noticed that has made life better in some way? Not necessarily for you, but things you've observed. Rick, you first.
Well, thank you, Mark. I mean, it's kind of loaded in the sense that you get to spend time with family. You get closer. You start to see when you remove all. I'm just thinking for myself. I've removed so many external things like traveling, moving around, going to baseball games. I mean, I haven't put this jersey on since the off season.
Nice jersey, by the way.
Yeah, because it's just like, you know, I walked outside and it's summer and I feel the heat and.
Well, there's one thing right there. It was a beautiful day today.
It was very nice.
I don't know how it is in the RC where you live, but down here
Hot.
in the South Bay, it was a beautiful sunshiny day.
Very hot.
Yeah. And to me, you know, I don't know, Josh, you would be able to tell us better about this, but haven't we seen a higher number of people, I could be wrong, viewing the services?
Yeah. You know, it's hard to. I don't have like all the matrix and like the expensive equipment to really kind of see, like, you know, if it's new people or old people. But there's definitely an uptake kind of globally in online church and kind of the platform that we have now to be able to do church from, you know,
wherever you're at.
Wherever you're at is amazing. I mean, not getting political at all, but, you know, getting back to Easter or Palm Sunday when President Trump's tweeting out, like, I'm going to be watching this church's Palm Sunday or Easter, whatever it is. There's a story about an atheist who said, you know, I saw Trump was going to watch Greg Laurie's church for Easter, Palm Sunday or whatever, and I was like, I'll just try it out. So he ended up watching the service, and at the end of the service, he gave his heart to the Lord. So you can already see right there that God is doing something,
right?
That's pretty amazing. That guy probably never would have watched Greg Laurie if this wasn't going on and the president wasn't, you know, doing his daily briefing. So what the enemy means for evil, God can most definitely turn for good.
Absolutely.
For good. So,
and you know, if you look throughout history, any historian, person who looks at, you know, the wide scope of history of the church, we know for a fact that the church always thrives in times of adversity. It's when times are good, things are going well, that's when the church usually flounders.
Yeah.
So you see the church, at least in the West, is kind of rising up to the occasion. People are engaging in prayer much more. People are reaching out to care for other people much more. So I see a lot of positive things coming out of this.
Do you think that some of the, I mean, a lot of people think it's like the end of the world. You know, God's dropped another set of plagues on the world, and Book of Revelation and stuff like that. I mean, and that's not really the point, but I would think that if your mind is there in that place, at least mine was there a couple times, not a lot. I didn't really dwell on it as much as I thought I would. But I mean, you kind of start to think if I'm an atheist, it's kind of like, whoa, I better kind of dig into maybe this God character to see if there's more to it, because now I'm starting to kind of get a little bit closer. What if I get this disease and die? I mean,
right, sure.
It's probably, you know, the odds are still low, but it's something you think about, you know, especially another thing that I was struggling with is it's like I turn on the TV and there's always the death scoreboard.
Yeah, that's your first problem.
Yeah, the first, absolutely. Right off the bat, I would say the less TV you watch, at least the news, the better. Check in once a day, get the basic facts, be informed, but, you know, the more you wallow in that, it just, that'll really make you depressed.
Yeah, I think people are looking to the news to hear some good news.
No.
And I think by nature, even if there was going to be good news, you're probably not going to hear a lot of it on the news. So,
however, again, for me to jump in and try and throw something positive there, Rick, a couple of weeks ago, you made a really great video that we showed on Wednesday night. We had our worship and prayer night.
Yep.
And it was great because there was actually some news footage of people praying. So the news is actually, I would say more so these days, is shining a light on some of those positive things that are going on. You know, even, what did you send me TD Jakes? He was praying on MSNBC the other night.
And it wasn't even like he said, let me pray. I mean,
no,
the news anchor was like,
he said, you know, I've never done this before, but Pastor, would you lead us in prayer? And he did, right on the spot.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I've seen a lot of that on TV. Greg Laurie's been on, the TD Jakes, and a lot of times when the politicians or anybody gets on, they kind of cut you off, you know, with the prayer. But I'm hearing gospels just dropped all the way through. They're not interrupting them at all, and that's something new. Something else new was I know they pray in Congress. Mark would know better than this. Mark, talk about that. But you're hearing it on live TV now too,
right?
Which is another thing that's changing, which is pretty interesting to see. It's nice to see, you know, if you're a believer. But being a believer, there's the other side of being a believer, and that is, you know, for me sometimes, again, not to say doubting Thomas, but one of the things I like about this is I like to kind of play the role of the guy that's kind of, you know, skeptic, but like I'm a believer. I am really a believer.
Sure.
But I want to kind of come at it with you guys, Josh being the pastor, Mark. But like, you know, there's times we doubt. It is like kind of like, well, where is God? And like, you know, I have faith. And then I think, oh, do I have faith? Maybe I don't have faith. Maybe I don't have enough faith because I'm getting all worked up over this. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for a news piece or a headline to tell me that it's okay to go outside. I'm looking for that to be happy. I'm looking for that to have some comfort. But I'm looking in the wrong place. And I think, wait a second, you're a believer. You got this Bible right here. Pick it up.
Right.
Pick it up. Close your eyes. Turn the TV off. Ask God to come down and so I think that even as a Christian, even as a believer, whatever level you are, it sounds weird to say, you can find yourself being pulled down into the gutter, you know?
Mm-hmm. But I think that's where, you know, it comes from, you know, don't read the news headlines, but read God's word, you know, substitute. Because you can, as a Christian, you can totally, I feel like you can totally fall back on how long you've been a Christian, where it's more of kind of a daily routine than a relationship with God. And when you're in a routine rather than a relationship, you're not gonna notice when those feelings of trust and those conversations with God start to drift away. It's just gonna be like you're a robot. You know, robots don't feel emotions, but if you maintain that relationship with God every day, you're gonna notice when you're slipping. There's gonna be that conviction, but definitely turn off the news. Stop reading those headlines and read God's headlines. You know, there's amazing things written in the Bible that are stories of what He's done in the past, but doesn't limit God to just working in the past.
Right.
Right? Because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And I don't know. I'm just looking forward to seeing what God's doing through all of this, because it's going to be something amazing. It's going to be something amazing.
What about you? I mean, as a pastor, Josh, I mean, you know, young pastor, you got a family, you gotta put the face on sometimes. I mean, let's face it, you're a human. Like you kind of go through some things. Do you find that do you find that you kind of have any of these like challenges internally, like within yourself? I mean, as a pastor, can you go to another pastor? Like, who pastors a pastor?
Yeah, I think as a pastor, you need to have people that you can talk to. You have people that you can confide in. But, you know, I learned very early on in my life to trust God. I learned that he's my provider. He's who I go to when I don't know what's going on. And I don't know, this might sound arrogant or whatever, but I don't have a lot of times where I'm doubting God, or I'm like wondering where God's at. You know, around the last times that we were doing these is when my mom was sick with cancer. And we were just getting our relationship back on track, and like we were never close growing up, but we had started spending a lot of time together, and our relationship was just getting good, and I was believing God for a miracle that she was going to beat cancer, and she died in the middle of a 21-day prayer and fast revival here at the church. And I just felt like, you know, a lot of people were telling me, because I would spend all day with my mom studying and stuff, and I would come to the church and I would preach, and we'd have worship and we'd have prayer, and then I'd leave here and I'd go back with my mom, and people were saying, just spend time with your mom, it's okay, you don't need to do this. But I was believing God to do a miracle in my mom's life, and she ended up dying a few weeks after we ended that. And you know, it would have been so easy for me to say, God, where were you? How come you didn't heal her? Like, you didn't answer my prayer. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. But I learned to trust that God has a plan. You know, even in the midst of that, when my mom and I were getting closer together, she was getting closer to God, and she ended up accepting the Lord before she died. And now I have no issues knowing that she's not here on this earth, but she's with God. You know, she's not in pain anymore. She's not suffering. She's not wondering why her life is a disaster, but she's with God in heaven. And like I said, I learned a long time ago, I don't need to ask those questions. And it's okay to ask those questions. Don't get me wrong. You can ask those questions, but don't let
And I think God's not offended when we ask those questions. You know, he invites those questions because, you know, frankly, if we're serving a God that can't answer questions, then maybe it's not something that I would want to promote. But I believe that God has all the answers to every question.
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt.
No, and that's a good point, because if you look back into the book of Habakkuk, however you say it.
Yeah, that's good.
Everybody's different things. You just read the entire chapter. He's like, God, why are you doing this? God, why are you doing that? And he's questioning God, and it's not God sending like thunderbolts down and striking him. It's God. They're having a conversation, and God's explaining, listen, this is what's going to happen, but don't worry, because I'm still at work. You can ask God.
The Bible is filled riddled with stories of people questioning God.
Yeah.
And it's in God's word. But every time he comes through with the answer. So it's okay to have the questions. Bring on the questions. The more questions, better.
Bring it on, baby.
Yeah.
We were
Actually, go ahead.
No, we were talking beforehand. Mark, is another inspirational thing about you is when you talk about somebody who's got faith, I mean, you literally live by faith. Like there are people that say they have faith. There are people that do have faith, but I've seen it in your life. I'm like, how did you get through that month? And you're like, God did it again. God did it again. And he just time after time after time. A lot of people can say God did it for them once, twice, 3 times, 4 or 5, but like it's like a weekly, monthly thing with you, and I think that might be a lot of the reason why you just kind of like, you're so comfortable with any weird, like Josh, I'll freak out sometimes on things. I get all impatient, and Mark's just chilling. And
well, we need a balance. I'm probably sometimes a little bit the other way, so we need people, to balance us out. Everybody brings something to the table.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes you need to be a little more alert about what's going on.
Have you always had this so much faith, though? I mean, there's got
Well,
to, come on,
yeah.
guys, there's got to be a time where you're like, all right, this one's real hard, and then you find that stride again
Sure.
without breaking apart.
Right. Right. I mean, it's like it's been said over and over before. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon. And it's not. You're not always going to feel great. Things are not always going to go your way. Sometimes you just got to do the hard work of life. And even in the midst of that, the longer you ask anybody who's served the Lord for a long time, and the longer you're in this, walking this journey of life, the more stories you have to look back of, oh yeah, I've made it through things like this before. So why do we doubt that we're not going to make it through? Although we do every day.
Yeah.
I wanted to read you that thing should I read that thing I was telling you about it, Rick?
Yes, please.
This friend of mine, I thought this was fantastic, sent this in a letter to his ministry, whoever's on his ministry list. And he quotes from a book called God in the Dark by Os Guinness. The quote says, "It's not the business of faith to deny reality, but to order it. Denying reality is a mark of make-believe, not of living faith." And then he says, "When I get honest, I admit I'm a bundle of paradoxes. I believe and I doubt. I hope and I get discouraged. I love and I hate. I feel bad about feeling good. I feel guilty about not feeling guilty. I'm trusting and suspicious. I'm honest and I still play games." And then he says, "Have you ever met one of those people that's so full of faith that they refuse to admit that they were sick, even if they were coughing up blood and had just lost an arm? They won't admit the obvious for fear that it would ruin their good confession. That's not faith, that's foolishness. Real Christian faith speaks to the storm. It doesn't deny the storm exists."
Wow.
I thought that was good. Because it's, we're all human. Even Jesus, right? You see stories in the gospel where Jesus loses it, right? And that's his humanity, where he shows us that, hey, he's lived life like we did. He was tempted like we are. He experienced all the range of emotions. And, he taught it that we can make it through whatever we deal with.
Would you say for the person out there, and I could be one of them, would you say faith takes practice, just like anything?
Absolutely.
I mean,
like riding a bike.
Is that one of the things that we're not
It's
taught?
like running, yeah. Right. It's a muscle. If you don't exercise it, it's going to atrophy. Sure. Absolutely.
So it's kind of like we have the muscle, but if we don't exercise it, it's not going to work. We're going to be weak in that area.
And again, it doesn't take a lot, because what did Jesus say? If you have a faith of a mustard seed,
Yeah.
you can move this mountain, right? And so actually, when you talk about working with children, with kids, I think the younger you are, a lot of times the more faith you have. It's only as you become older and you start looking at realities of the world, and it's like Peter, when he stepped out into the water, he was walking on the water until he looked at the waves. And when he looked in the waves, that's when he started to sink. So the key is not to keep your eyes on the circumstances, but to keep your eyes on the prize.
And that's, I think, and for me, again, that's hopefully I'm speaking for some people. That's what we do. We're looking at these waves, and
again, you don't want to have the biggest tool I think the enemy uses in that is guilt, right? Because then we start feeling guilty. Oh, I am not a good Christian. I'm not a good person of faith. I sunk in the water. We got to take courage that some of the greatest people who changed the world lacked in faith. So there's no such thing as a superstar in God's kingdom, right? He said, whoever is the greatest in the kingdom is the least of all.
Yeah.
This is what I love about Mark, Josh.
Oh, what is not?
No.
We love you, Mark.
No. But he's good for a good spiritual slapping. Right?
Well,
really wake you up.
Sometimes
really
you
get
need
you out
it,
of
right,
bed
Gina?
and tell you to wake up and shut up and walk the walk.
And
sometimes it's tough love, right, Mark?
Yeah. Well, and we have to do that to ourselves too.
Yeah.
I have to do that to myself on a daily. Sometimes I'm in the middle of my day, And you could be lonely, or you could be facing like, how am I going to pay the bills? We all experience that. But that's when you have to slap yourself in the face and say, okay, Lord, I know you're on the throne. I know you got this under control. Why am I stressing about it?
That's a perfect segue to. Let's talk about money for a little bit. Okay.
No, I'm leaving.
And how it relates to and how it relates
we're all
to
broke,
faith.
so I don't know what you want us to
that's
tell
the
you
whole
about.
thing, right? It's like people are out of work. They feel like they're losing everything. They're getting in this panic mode. And Mark, you were talking about like, hey, sometimes it is month to month, and sometimes I could go to this place of just sheer panic and like desperation, because I think that's going to be the one thing here that's going to bring people to their absolute limit, is when you've just lost it and you don't know when the money's coming, you don't know how the money's coming,
Right.
you can't rely on the government anymore. And Mark, you have a lot of experience in this area where you just, what do you like? Will you pray for it, or will you just know it's coming? Like, what are some techniques that you use that maybe other people could kind of learn while they're panicking right now?
Well, I don't know. That might be a better question for Josh. I mean, Josh has, how many kids do you have? 3?
I think.
3?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got 5 people, 5 mouths to feed in your family. For me, it's just myself, but either way, the principle's the same. Is you got to be wise.
Yeah.
Jesus. There's a lot of lessons in the scripture where Jesus talks about being wise with the resources that you have. You can't be wasteful and then cry out to God and say, "Oh, I'm broke," But if you're wise and you trust the Lord, He's always going to be faithful.
Yeah, it's true. And I think one of the most important things as a believer is your tithing as well.
Spoken like a true pastor.
We're gonna take an offering after this. Get your credit cards out. No, but really, like, we're a single income family, and I work at a church. Yet we never have a lack. We might have some personal needs or desires, but we never have a lack. God always provides, and it took years of practice. There was times where we literally were like negative in the bank account. But God still always provided, and we learned very early on in our marriage. Well, we learned early on in our marriage. I don't know if it was very early on. Tithing, giving God back even when we don't have, He's going to provide. He's not going to just say, give me that 10% or give me the first fruit of your offering, so that you can be without. He's going to provide. And I sure that's probably easy for me to say right now because I still have a job. Like, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not broke. I'm not worrying about where. I mean, I may be a little broke in like some areas of my life, but that's besides the point. I'm not worrying about where my next paycheck's coming from. So it is easy probably for me to say that, but it was not always like that. There was times where I was working. I had a good job before I started working at the church, and life circumstances happened, and we were negative in our bank account, and somehow somebody who knew us but didn't know our circumstance blessed us with money. And I believe that was God saying, listen, you're faithful to me, and I'm going to be faithful to you. And he's always provided. I've never had a lack ever in my entire life. He's always provided.
What about you, Rick? Tell us about how you handle these kinds of.
Well, I'm not the best at it, I got to admit.
But you have a wife that's pretty sharp, right?
She's definitely sharp. She's I would say a little bit smarter than I am. But no, I think at the end of the day, sometimes my downfall is I do get a little nervous, probably more than I should. I could probably be a little bit more of like a solid foundation. So that's the struggle, like I said, sometimes, you want to, at least I want to provide, I want to, be the money. I bring it in, provide for everybody. And then when you don't, and you can't, you get to that crossroads. You
Right.
could go down panic road, or you could go down faith road. And
the interesting thing is whether you panic or whether you have faith, so it doesn't often change the circumstances.
Yeah.
So you might as well at least have a positive attitude that's at least you're one step up.
Yeah, there's going to be storms in life, no matter how mature of a Christian you are, how new of a Christian you are, if you're not walking with the Lord. The greatest thing that Jesus offers is peace in that storm.
Yeah.
And that's something I hold on to, is even if he doesn't necessarily calm the storm when I want him to,
Right.
I have peace in that storm because I know that I'm not in it alone.
Right. I mean, remember Jesus is that one story I love where he's in the boat and they're all panicking and he's taking a nap. He's taking a nap in the back of the boat. He wasn't worried.
That's Mark.
No, I'm not. That's Jesus, not me.
No, but one time we were at Disneyland.
No, that story was in was it Mark?
The book of Mark.
No, and that's I think that right now is kind of the season right now for a lot of people.
For sure.
I mean, 26 million now.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough. That's real. And my fear is, on the one hand, yes, like we were saying, people are might be gravitating towards God because, I don't know, they think they're going to die. But then there's going to be some other seasoned Christians and be like, wait a second, God is not showing up right now. And in fact, take it a step further, there's a lot of people thinking God's like dropping wrath already on people, which includes his own believers. What would you guys say to that?
Well, I mean, the thing is, a lot of times people don't want to even consider God, and they're not interested when things are going good. And then when things go bad, they want to blame him for all of the problems that, honestly, we brought on ourselves. I mean, everything that happens in this world that we live in, 99% is brought on by situations of this world, right? I mean, God created this perfect world and put us in it, and we pretty much screwed it up. But he still loves us. He still cares for us. He still takes care of us regardless. So that's to me is like, that's what you got to say to someone like that is like, bro, you can't blame God for all the problems in the world, 99%, which is made up by humans.
But to play, I don't like the word devil's advocate.
No, go ahead.
I would never advocate for him. But to be the other side is like people would say, well, in the old days, God had a tendency to, bring calamity upon his people because they weren't listening and they fell away. Mm-hmm. And he said that. He said, you guys got to turn back to me. You guys got to come back. Remember all the
sure.
The, and then
and I believe that.
But now I'm gonna have you conquered and you're gonna be taken in as slaves and stuff like that. Do you think stuff like that applies now, or are we not sure?
Well, I mean, there are situations, I believe, that, as there's different kinds of punishments. I mean, if you look throughout history, nations have been punished collectively because of the sins of a few. But we also see situations where you have the polar opposite, where people are saved because of the faith of a few. Mm-hmm. So, it's two sides of the same coin, I think.
What do you think, Josh?
I mean, I think back, you always, in times of trouble, you always go back to Job, right? And you think, well, what was it about Job? And I think the thing about Job is he realized, God gives and he takes away, and can we take the good without the bad?
No, you got to have both. I
mean,
life is messy. Mm-hmm. It's a mix of bad things happen. The rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. So, that's just reality of life. We can't use that as an excuse to have a pity party. That's my attitude. And besides, it just brings you down. Tough things are tough already. So to be down in the midst of tough times, then you're really dragging yourself down. Look for the positive.
Yeah.
There's plenty to look for.
Listen, I'm just going by kind of the things I'm seeing. And
sure, I understand, and that I'm trying to be positive to lift people up to say that hey, we're not denying reality. We're going through tough times.
Yeah.
But and we're hearing it over and over. People are saying, just talk about America. America has been through tough times. I think the more you know about history, the less you get worried about the present. Because you see patterns, you see calamities that have happened throughout history, and people rise above it, and then that's where people of faith can come along, people that don't have faith, and say, hey, let me show you a better way, and you lift them up. That's what we're here for, to lift people up, not to drag them down.
Yep.
There's plenty of stuff to drag people down.
I feel like the church has been hit pretty hard with some of the things that's going on in terms of really kind of getting negative media from some, because certain pastors will say, well, I'm not worried about this virus, and then it turns out one of the pastors
You're going to
died.
go there, huh, Rick?
No.
We almost made it.
No, well, I mean,
no,
it's real
it's
talk.
good. Bring it.
It's
Yeah.
real talk.
Yeah,
And,
you're right.
And then the pastor died, and they go, well, how about that God thing? It doesn't look like there's too many what did they say? Something crazy, like it doesn't look like there's too many antiviral properties in that church, or something like that.
Right.
And I mean, that's got to be tough for people to hear, doubters especially, and
Right.
it's like, wow.
Right. Well, because again, we live in the real world, and God doesn't expect us to be foolish. There is faith that God can. I do believe God can heal, but we have to be wise in what we do, and that's why you see the majority of pastors and churches are turning to a different, like we are right now, reaching out to people in a different way, and actually more people are probably being reached than the traditional way. So, I'm not putting down someone who, however you're going to do ministry, but we got to be wise.
Yeah. It's hard. You can't judge another person's faith and what that, maybe, some of these pastors are hearing from God that they need to do certain things. But I think wisdom comes from God, and you have to act in that wisdom. You have to act in that calling. I don't know. I mean, it could be easy for us to say that some pastors have more faith because they're operating in a full church. It could be easy for us to say that pastors are dumb because they're operating in a full church. I don't know. I just know that the church that we're in and the place that we're called to serve, this is how we're doing it. And I'm not really interested in judging another pastor by what they choose to do. I mean, there's so many things that we could say. They're glory hogs, or they're living by faith. I don't know. This is what our church is doing, and I'm going to let them be judged on their own actions with God, because I'm definitely not qualified for that.
Right.
And speaking of which, you guys are doing a particular was it a drive-in service, or what are you guys doing this weekend?
Drive-in church, not this weekend.
No.
May 3rd. We're going to do a parking lot church, and we're going to...
Really?
Yeah.
That's the first I heard about that.
I had a video that we were going to show, but we had some technical difficulties in the beginning. It's on our Facebook page. You can go look at it. But we're gonna all pull into the parking lot, and we're going to have church.
Is that legal?
It's legal. California, you can have drive-in church. You just don't get out of your car. All right? Go to the bathroom before you come. Don't drink coffee.
How are the people going to hear you? In their cars?
We have a radio station. They can. No,
really?
I'm just kidding.
Oh,
we're gonna set up speakers outside.
I believe that too.
We're gonna line. That would be cool. It's way too much work, I think. But we're gonna line the parking lot with speakers, and we have a flatbed truck coming, and we're gonna put Nathan and Pastor Phil up there, and we're gonna worship, and we're gonna preach, and we're gonna have church.
Okay.
Just don't get out of your cars.
Okay.
Yeah. So So what kind of information do they need? I know
Well,
you'll list
we're
it,
gonna do Sunday, May 3rd at 10:15. We're pushing service back 15 minutes so that we can do sound check and stuff. We don't really want to sound check before 10 a.m. just to respect the neighbors.
Thank you, Harbor Church.
Courtesy of your friendly neighborhood church. We're going to have some parking attendants. We're going to print out the words to the worship songs. We're going to do everything that we can to make it, compliant. The cars will be spaced 6 feet apart. Like I said, don't get out of your car. Just roll your window down. And we're going to probably keep it kind of a short service, probably an hour, maybe a little less. And we're still going to live stream. So for those of you who can't come, maybe you don't have a car. Somebody asked me, what do I do if I don't have a car?
Come with someone else. Carpool.
Yeah, well, I mean, family, right? Somebody you live with?
Huh?
We want to be mixing families.
Oh, I see. Well, right.
Yeah,
No. I mean, maybe. Oh, yeah. I guess that. Never mind. What do I know? This is the first time hearing about this.
You want to, we want everybody who is living together, like families of cars who have multiple cars, to come in one car. Maybe don't come until about 9:45. We don't want you to linger in your car too long to get that itch to get out and start mingling. But we'll have some more information coming soon as we kind of get it solidified and things. I mean, there's not really a whole much more to do. We're gonna have a truck, a speaker, a pastor, and a guitar.
Okay, cool.
And everything's going to be completely above board, and people don't have to have fear of being embarrassed by. You guys are all cleared it with everyone, right?
Being embarrassed.
Well, if the police come and shut it down and the newspaper you don't have to worry about that because it's totally legal here.
Well, it's legal. I mean,
I'm in San Bernardino County, so I don't know what the rules are.
Yeah, it's legal in all of California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was some churches that in California that kind of got shut down that were doing it, and they had an attorney come and represent them in the state of California, and they said, well, yeah, I guess we really kind of need to allow it. I mean, they didn't say it like they were defeated. They said like, well, I guess cars are technology, and technology is considered essential. So as long as you maintain those boundaries, you can do it. So
Just got to be wise and smart. Everybody that comes, right?
yeah, I mean,
Act like an adult.
don't get out of the car.
I think it's going to be nice.
Don't
because
get out of the car.
a lot of-
Everybody say it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Don't
Don't get out of the car.
Perfect. I'll be there. It's going to be nice to see people. I think people need this right now. I mean, it has been almost 2 months now, so I think it's important for humans to see other humans again.
Right.
I was watching some like highlights and some concert footage, and I'm like, remember the days when we could just be around people and just bump into them and hug them and stuff? It's so weird that's like.
Oh, we'll get back.
Yeah.
It'll be all good.
See, Mark. This is why.
We'll be giving you a hug before.
This is why we brought you
before
on.
too
man.
long,
Don't
little
hug
Ricky.
me. Don't hug me.
Mark, lastly,
Yeah.
thank you for coming on and
Hey, it's
talking
fun.
us-
Thanks for
talking us-
having me.
talking us out of the.
Oh, I said I say hi to Mia in Dallas. Mia in
We're giving
Dallas,
shout-outs
Texas.
now?
Just giving shout out to my friend. I hope she's listening.
Mark just went way off
I'm
script.
shouting out my grandma in
Hi, Mia.
Dinuba.
Hi, Mia.
How about we shout out the Cornets for
Yeah,
Oh, that's
running
right,
our
our-
production for
yeah.
us tonight.
we have a
Jacob
crew here.
and Brittany.
Jacob and
Our
Brittany.
production crew here
And they're
at
big film
Let's
students.
Talk Live. Let's give it up for Jacob and Brittany Cornett. Woo!
They don't have to socially distance.
There they are.
Yeah, they live together.
Because yeah,
Nice stash there, Jake.
yes, I can't get anywhere.
We're a little
near
low
you guys.
budget around here.
Mark.
Oh, now you threw off our whole idea that we were in 3 different places.
Nobody believed that.
Well, we're far apart. I won't get anywhere near you, Mark. Mark, what final thoughts would you like to leave with our watchers who love you like we do?
Well,
We love you,
I just say stay positive. That's a bit cliche. Everybody's saying that, but it is true. Be grateful for all the things that you have and the people that are in your lives, and be smart and be wise. And looking forward to even better days in the years to come.
Lastly, Mark, you have to do one more thing.
One more thing.
The tradition, and that is, please pray for our guests and our viewers and anybody else who needs prayer right now.
Sure.
All right, let's
do
do
it.
this.
Lord, thank you so much that we can be together. As a friend of mine says, we meet on the bridge of prayer. We may not be able to be together. I mean, some of us have friends that live in another part of the world, and we communicate with them all the time. So sometimes we go through weird things, and we thank you that regardless of the circumstances around us, that you are alive, you are well, you have everything under control. Help us to trust you. It's not easy. All of us just sometimes doubt, even in the middle of our day. But you've been faithful. You've proven yourself faithful. You've
Yeah.
proven yourself faithful to me. You've proven yourself faithful to Josh.
Yep.
You've proven yourself faithful to Rick, to the Harbor Church. You've proven yourself faithful to the United States of America over the course of the history of our nation. So I pray that you would give strength right now to those that are working really on the front line especially in the medical world, those that are taking care of the sick. I pray that you would bring healing to those that are experiencing the effects of this virus right now. I pray that you would alleviate fear in people that are worried about where their next paycheck is going to come, or even if they're going to get the virus. We pray that you would just bring peace and calm in the midst of the storm. And we know that we are going through a storm right now, but we choose to trust you.
Yeah.
And so we pray that you would meet the needs of your people and even those that don't know you. And in the midst of all of this, we pray that you would draw people to know your love, that you just love us. And bottom line is you just want to have a relationship with humans, with mankind. That's why you made us in the first place. And so we thank you for the joy of that, and that relationship transcends time and experiences and feelings and circumstances. And so we thank you that we can be together tonight. Thank you for letting us to be a voice of encouragement in the midst of troubled times. And so we look forward to all that you are going to do. We're grateful for what you are already doing even now, and for the work that you are doing around the world as you're uniting your people together as one. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. You know, before you take us off, Rick, I just want to encourage everybody, all of us Christians out there, during this time, no matter what your political belief, don't let your politics ruin your witness. When you're talking to your friends and your family, and you're like, this governor's an idiot, that president's of this senator's of that, take the high road. Pray for them. Encourage them. You know, send them encouraging emails. Send them biblical passages. Do whatever you need to do, but don't rip them apart.
Right.
We got to be an example.
Jesus is not a Republican or a Democrat.
Yeah, never mind. We're called to pray for our leaders, not to rip them apart.
That's right.
So I just want to encourage you guys to do that.
Good word. Thank you, Pastor Josh.
Yeah, and we're supposed to, at the end of the day, we're supposed to, what's the Romans where it says you still got to listen to what they say. And I know it's hard for a lot of people.
Follow the direction of our leaders.
And not be spoiled brats that have to get your way all the time.
Whine.
Sometimes you just have to.
No whining.
Yeah. Thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in. It's been a couple years, and we wanted to do something fun because we know that, like the rest of us, you're sitting there probably, hopefully not watching the news like I have problems doing. But thank you for being here with us tonight, and please comment if you guys want us to come back, or you like anything you saw.
Watch Pollyanna. On Disney Plus.
Read your Bible. And keep your head up, and then hopefully we can be back with you very soon. And thanks for watching. See you guys soon.
Peace.
Bye.
Ricky?